Hey everyone, and welcome to the BlindSlash mapping tutorial. If you don't know what BlindSlash is, it's an add-on for World of Warcraft that lets completely blind and nearsighted players navigate the world. In order to help them find their way, we need sighted players like you to map paths and mark flight masters and other critical NPCs to help them make their way across the world without sighted help. So what do I need to do to get started in mapping for BlindSlash? Well, first of all, while many people find that they can map just fine on their regular retail account, a lot of people like to download and install the PTR, or the public test realm, where you can set up a character that has only the add-ons and the macros that you need. If you haven't already, I highly recommend that you join the BlindSlash Discord channel, where you can get help with any of these steps and also access a PDF version of this tutorial, which I try to keep updated. Once you've requested access to the PTR via your Battle.net account, open the launcher and you should see a drop-down menu here. Choose the Public Test Realm option for the current expansion, right now it's Dragonflight, and click Install. Set the options to how you like them, and then start install with that button right there. Once it's done installing, that button should change to a play button. Make sure when you log in that you're on the version that you want, and also that if you have multiple accounts that you've selected the right one. Again, the public test realm step is optional. If you are using the PTR, log in and you'll see a list of temporary servers. Sometimes these will be up, sometimes they'll be down, sometimes they'll have two different sets because they're testing two different versions. You can make a new character, but it's better to hit the back button, go in here and click the copy character button. Then you can choose the character you want to map with. Generally a high level character makes things easier. I actually have a specific alt I made just for mapping, and I've set it up with all the macros and things so they don't have to import them once I'm here. You should note that just importing the character isn't going to get you everything that you need. While it will bring some of your achievements with you, it generally won't bring your toys or your mounts automatically to the PTR. So what you need to do for that is you go back to the copy character dialog, see my mogs aren't even, and you want to click this copy account data button. That will select all of your toys and all of your mounts and things. And then you might want to do the copy key bindings button as well, especially if you have some specific settings that you've changed from the default. Now when you go in and export a character, it should come in with all of your settings and everything that you remember from live. Okay, sometimes when you export your character, you'll go in and you'll find that your name has already been used. The fix for that is simple. You just log in and it'll ask you to change your name. I actually like to import my main twice and then faction change one of them so I've got everything set up on both factions. If you don't have them yet, I highly recommend that you go and grab the scouting map toys for all of the various regions. Now, one thing that will not import are your interface settings. In order to grab those, you need to go back to your live account, click the share button, and snag that information. It will also make your life easier if you learn how to use the macros interface. This is just in your escape menu, and all you need to do is give it a name and maybe pick an icon for it. You can leave it blank. And then I'll have some info on the macros that will be the most convenient for you later. Well, some of these macros will actually be scripts. You'll need to allow those. At this point, none of them are going to work, of course, because we haven't installed the add-on. Before you can do that on the PTR though, you do need to launch it once. So now let's go find our add-ons. I like to use the CurseForge installer to manage those. I'll leave a link for that if you don't have it already. And I'm not 100% sure that you can install BlindSlash through that yet, but I'll show you how to do that manually later. So if you're using CurseForge, you should be able to manage all of your installations of World of Warcraft independently. Go up here to this button that says Retail, click the drop down box, and select the Retail PTR. The two add-ons that you have to have are TomTom and of course BlindSlash itself. This will also help you keep your version current. If for some reason you can't install BlindSlash this way, come down here and open your add-ons folder. If you're an advanced user, you're going to want to be able to find this folder anyway. So I like to grab it and make a bookmark on the desktop for it. Always try to make sure that your BlindSlash version is current. If you're not sure, you can go in here to the BlindSlash Discord, down to the, where is it? The BlindSlash Downloads channel, and grab the latest version. In most cases, you should just be able to do it through CurseForge, but if like you mess up a file or something, just come and grab a fresh version. It's no problem. Again, I like to save mine somewhere where I can find it easily. You'll be creating maps as text files, so it's good to have a dedicated folder for it. So updating is as simple as going to that folder that I showed you, deleting the old version, and then just popping the new one in from the zip file. Before you do this, you want to make absolutely sure that any changes you've made to maps in that old version have been saved somewhere else. Now that those are in place, we can launch the game again. There are a few things you'll probably want to do the first time you launch BlindSlash. One is to type /bsmute. This will mute some of the sounds that sighted users don't need. For the rest, type /bsTts, voice number, nofullstop, speed, and then volume 0. Now let's get your macros set up. Press escape and click the macros button to access those. Here's one I like that turns BlindSlash on and off. But the most common command you'll be doing is this /click bsmapframe. I like to bind that to a key I can reach pretty easily. This one will make a waypoint and also open up the copyframe. If for any reason you close the copyframe by accident, you can do this one. I also like to have one that lets me reload quickly. I've got some custom stuff on here. The reset all command you should only do if you've already copied out your points. And then this other one just scales my copyframe a little smaller than the default. Now let's test out our /click bsmapframe command. When you use it, the copyframe should automatically open. However, it doesn't always work the first time you try to use this on a newly imported character. If you find that this button isn't working, you can either type /reload, or if you've made a macro for it, just click that one. If it still doesn't want to work after a reload, just pop in the Discord and let us know. Maybe we can figure it out. If it's working properly, then when you push that button, it should come up with a little waypoint here, and also make one on your map and your mini-map. If you do accidentally make points that you don't need, just go ahead and click wipe and reset to 1, or reset to whatever number that you're working on. Alright, let's go make some maps. The best way to figure out what needs to be mapped is to turn BlindSlash on and go wander around. You should be able to see all the waypoints that have already been mapped. Right now there's nothing on this one. Once you do get mapping, the waypoints can clutter up your map a bit. So I like to go in here to Options, Add-ons tab, TomTom, and then the Minimap settings. The default is set to 16, which is pretty big. I like it down about 8. And then you need to go to the world map and do the same thing. Change it to 8 or whatever's comfortable for you. You can also change the color and appearance if you really want to. Once you're ready to go, find a spot that looks kind of central to your area. I'm going to make one by this portal here. That seems a good sort of starting point to work outward from. You can actually mark important things like portals with this Make Place button. You can either push the button or just type the @ symbol and then give it a convenient name that'll show up in search. Then I'm just going to walk to my next point. This looks good here. It's kind of an intersection between 3 paths. Do try to make sure that the way is clear in all directions that you want to send them. The number should be auto-generated, but if you need to, you can set it manually, or just edit it right here inside the copy frame. You'll need to make a point wherever the path turns or branches. Also watch for obstacles that they might get stuck on. Make sure that you take them around those if you can. But if you can't, you can leave a little instruction that tells them to jump in the waypoint name. I know there's spots where the ground clutter gets pretty bad. You should also make sure that if a path runs by a drop-off, you hug the wall as much as possible. If you want to mark a critical NPC, it's really easy. Just select that NPC. Oh, and you can move this if it's in your way. So make sure that NPC is selected, and then click the Make NPC button. You can type this in manually too. It's just an exclamation mark followed by their name. And then if they need to search for a certain NPC, like a trainer or something, then it's easy to find them in search. Flight masters are especially important. Make sure that you mark those whenever possible. Again, you just select the NPC and then push the Make NPC button, and it'll put it right there on your last waypoint. Make sure you always have a clear line of sight to any NPCs that they may want to talk to. You don't need to map everyone on here. They'll generally be using a quest add-on that helps them find where things are. But like trainers and things like this that aren't generally the object of a quest, make sure those are on there. Okay, now when we pass this building, we forgot to do something. Not every building needs to be mapped, but it's kind of important for inns and things. So to add a missed branch, first of all, look on your minimap and find the number of the path that you're on. We want to connect this to Honeydew Village 6. I'll just mark my place here. So now you'll need to click Start Branch. This will ask you what path number you want to do it from, so we want 6 in this case. Walk up to the point you want to mark, and check that out. The branch number is now 6.1. It is vitally important that these are in a specific order. The numbers are really just there to help the player. Here we've got a mailbox. I think I'm going to mark that on the map. It'll put it at the end, but you can just copy paste, or you can type it in by hand. It's no big deal. So I'm not going to go very far into this building, but I do need to make sure that they can get in and out of this door. So long as the point you make has a clear line of sight to any NPCs are in there, it should be good enough. They can just target them from there. Again, make sure that this point is in the right order, and then there's something very important that you need to do. You can either type the word end or click this end button right here. If you do not include the end button, it'll try to take them directly from this 6.2 path out to 7. If you stick end on there, however, it will turn them around and walk back to point 6 before taking them there. I don't think there's anything up here that needs to be mapped. You might map these guys, but I don't think that they're quest NPCs. Now on to a very important topic, moving points. When we mapped this earlier, we didn't notice this little staircase going down. And currently we don't have any points that align nicely with it. So what we can do is take a look at this little thing up here. These are your world coordinates, and this is added by TomTom. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to take one of these points here and move it slightly to the side. I can do that by typing in those coordinates you see at the top. Again, you can hover over a point on your minimap to figure out which one that you're looking at. I don't need that comma. And I still should be close enough to that NPC that they can target her from there. Also, make sure that you've put the end keyword on that last point. By the way, make sure that you don't make any points that have the word end in them unless they really are endpoints. So now, very, very important step. You need to click in that copy frame, Control A to copy everything, and then paste it into a document somewhere. You can save this as whatever you need to for now. One thing you should make sure to save yourself some work later is that you copy out the map number. Make sure that you're grabbing the current map number, not the last map number. It's good to get the zone name too, but for now I'm just going to name this Pandaria map 371. There we go. If this is your first map, pop it in the Discord and you're done. Later on though, you might find yourself wanting to test out your maps and make sure that they're good. Keep in mind that you should only do this next step if you're confident with your computer skills. First, remember that map number. Inside the add-ons folder, there's another folder called BlindSlash Map Data. If there's already points on that map, there should be a numbered map in here that matches what you're working on. If there is no map existing already, you'll have to go through another step. The easiest thing to do is just make a copy of an existing map. Paste it in there and rename it. Start with the map number, of course. But then at this point you also need to make sure that you have the zone name. Finding that is as simple as going back to your map and checking what zone you're in. It doesn't need to match exactly. This says the Jade Forest, but I can just type Jade Forest. Just something that makes it easier for people to figure out later. Always keep the map number first though, to make it easier to find things later. You could also create a file and just save it with the regular save dialog. So now that I've made this file, I open it up. Pay attention close here, because if you get something wrong in here, your map won't work and then you'll be frustrated. First of all, you need to change this number to your map number. Then make sure that when you paste in your waypoints, it doesn't add any extra indents like this. Now let's remove the stuff we don't need. First of all, make sure you keep those top two brackets. Those are important. After that, scroll all the way to the end. Keep those last two end brackets. Don't delete them. You can select everything else in that file and just delete it. Good idea to save here. Now grab those waypoints that you made, copy them all. Control A is the shortcut if you don't know it. Control V puts them in here. Now because I'm using a code editor, it's got some extra indents, so make sure that those all get removed. It's Shift Tab in mine. Double check that map number and save. Now there's another step that you have to do before you'll actually see your maps in game. Well, actually two steps. First, just go back to this folder. If you're in BlindSlash map data, click up to the parent folder and find this blindslash.toc file. If your map number is not in this list here near the bottom, it won't show up. So just take one of these, copy it, paste it, and then edit it with your specific map name. This has to be exactly the same as the name that you gave it inside the map data folder. So if you do this step and it's not working, double check that you've got it exactly character for character, lowercase, uppercase, spaces all in the same places. Again, if you think you've made a big mistake, you can just grab a fresh copy of the zip file and pop that in there and it should fix it all again. Make sure you save that. And now the last thing that is non-negotiable is that if you add a file, you must close out World of Warcraft before it will show up. If you're just modifying an existing file, you can hit reload. But if your map didn't exist in the first place and you added it like we just did now, then you will have to close it. And now if you've got everything right, you should be able to see your waypoints and be able to tweak them if you feel that they need it. Keep in mind that in order to change them at this point, you will have to go back into that Lua file to do it. So now we're going to go back and map the rest of this little village. First of all, check my mini-map to see where the point is that I want to connect this branch to. There are two ways I can do branches. I've shown you the one, which is what we're going to do here, and then there's a crossroads after that. For now, we just want to pop open our map frame, which will have all the data that we saved from last time. So if you don't want that, just hit wipe, set the number to where you want it to be. Actually, we need to just start a branch here and make your first point. Again, you can just move this out of your way, wherever's convenient. So now I'm going to take this path and I'm going to stop just like in front of the doors that might have NPCs they need to talk to. I don't feel the need to actually go in there. And since we're on a branch, we can't branch it a second time. So just make sure it's lined up nicely, and that should be plenty. Then I'm going to go over to this really narrow entrance to the village here. They've got it barricaded, so make sure you put your point as close into that gap as you can. And once we're past this road, it's not really the village anymore. So I'm going to go ahead and call this the last point. And then we'll hit the end button, which will also end the branch. So if I were to continue, it would just go to point 3, but we don't want that because we already have a point 3. So let's copy these out, save them into your text file, or you can go, if you're adding them directly to the Lua file, go in there. Now again, the location that you put these is vitally important. These are branching off of point 2, so I need to put them between points 2 and 3. And make sure that that end point is there. so that it'll turn them around instead of jumping them to the point 3. Now the path does continue past this point, which means we need to learn how to do something new. Since we can't keep branching out to forever, we're going to link up a new path with a crossroads. To make a crossroad, you can use the Create Connect button. You can also type the keyword by hand, but the crossroad Create Connect will auto-generate a name for you based on where you're sitting. If you don't like the auto-generated one, then you can change it, but just make sure that there's no spaces in it and you've got a capital letter in there after crossroads. So for the next path, you're going to need to reset to 1. You can also use the set button, but reset does it quickly. From here we've just been using the zone text for our paths, but I think we're going to push the custom text button and change this to say Honeydew Glade. You can change it back to the zone default by pushing that button below custom text. So now we've got a new path started. Again, make sure that you make points at any crossroads that you're going to need to branch off from later. Try to keep it in the center of the crossroads as well as you can. You don't need your points to be very dense unless you're turning or going across something narrow like this. And then you don't need to mark every NPC because they're going to have other add-ons to help them find quests. Our job is mainly to get them to the quest area and maybe help them path through difficult parts of it. So now let's copy that out and figure out where we want to add it to our file. We'll just put it in the end here. I like to leave a little space. It's not really important. Make sure you do have that end keyword on there, especially if you're going to add other paths afterwards. If I'm going to continue this path, then it's fine, but in general, if that's all you're adding to the file, you should put the end on there just in case. Oh, and don't forget to add back in any crossroads. And as always, save your work. Okay, so let's move on to some of the other neat features that we've got. Say for example, you're walking along and all of a sudden, oh no, I'm in the water. And you can't get back up the way that you came. For a sighted user, that's no problem. We just, take a look. Oh, there's a path right there. But if I'm blind, I could spend an hour trying to get out of here. So what you'll want to do is find a spot where they can just walk up without having to jump over anything. Make sure that you test it while you're not on a flying mount. And then once you've figured out a good place, you want to go and make a rescue point. You start a rescue point just like any other point. Find a place, make a mark. And once you've done that, you'll need to hit the Make Rescue button right over here. What that does is make this little arrow on your map. You can type it in by hand if you want to. But that will add them to a list of rescue points that they'll be able to search through and find the nearest one. Then just make sure that there's a path that connects that to what you've already created. Hover over the point on your minimap to see where you need to connect it up, and then just hit the Create Connect button. Copy that. Make sure that you put it over here on that other point as well. Again, you can modify this text to say whatever you want it to be. Also, you can have more than 2 points with this specific crossroad on it. The pathing algorithm will just take them to whichever one is nearest. You should never ever have 2 different crossroads in the same point. If you need to branch off in 2 different directions, just use the same keyword. And then don't forget that if you're changing these in here, you also need to change it in your file. Fun fact, the copyframe will save whatever you did on your last session, but it is also specifically linked to your character. So if you want to be mapping in 2 or 3 different places at a time, you can just grab a different character and not have to worry about your things getting reset. So here, since I'm adding another path, I do need to add that end keyword. If someone were to go in and edit that later, they could just add more points and move the end keyword there. Code-wise, this piece would work just fine, but I'm going to make it look a little better. We're just going to change these all to match. And then we're going to adjust the numbers so that they're sequential for starting with 1. Again, make sure you don't delete that arrow, which is our rescue point. If I've been paying attention, I just could have changed the custom text and reset it to 1 and know how to do any of that. But if you forget, that's how you fix it. Then if we're saving those in there, we can just reload and see our new points. You should also learn how to test your paths. I think that's going to be a separate video though. Now one thing I forgot to show you when we were crossing over this bridge here is that there's a little shortcut button that helps you let the user know that it's going to be really narrow and that they're going to want to take it slow. Again, this is something that you could just type in by hand, but here's a little button that makes your life easier. The narrower it is, probably the more points that you want to have along it. Also make sure that if there are things in the way, that you take your path out a little past them and make the final one. Okay, so up till now we've been working all on the same map. But what happens if your map changes? Oh no, what have I done? Why is everything red? Don't panic, it's just telling you that you need to make a zone change. So just like the rescue button, this one adds a little character to your waypoint. The angle brackets need to be on either side of the zone change. I like to type in a little helper dialog. You should also make sure that the path in the new zone starts from 1. You can manually change that first one so you don't have to re-record it. Again, add a keyword to help the players. And then you'll want to make sure that you update your custom text box. If you're having trouble figuring out exactly where the map changed, just take a look at your waypoints. See, mine changes from 21 to 66 on that last change. Don't forget to manually set your path number, or it'll just continue on where it was. That's this button right here. And from there you can just continue on as normal. This also might be a good place to put in a rescue point. Now you don't need a zone change when you cross into a separate subzone like Farendale just now. Only when that map number changes. If you want to change the text color back, copy out your waypoints with Control-C, paste them in your document somewhere and save them. Then you can hit wipe, click anywhere inside the copy frame and just Control-V to paste them back in. Now you will need to make sure to indicate where that map change was in your submitted files. If you want to preview your maps, they'll have to have their own map number, of course. But if you're just submitting your maps as text files, you can do it something like this. Grab the number of the last map there. Make sure it's visually obvious that there's a break there. And then put the current map number here. Once you're done making your maps, you'll need to submit them. Go ahead and find your file wherever it was that you saved it. I always try to make a backup of these, by the way. Then come in the BlindSlash Discord and find the map upload channel. You can either hit the plus button there and navigate to it, or you can just grab your folder, drag it right in here. Helps if you leave a little note just explaining what it is, and then push enter. If this is your first map, one of us will check it, make sure it works, and then give you some pointers if there's something that needs work. And don't worry too much about formatting it. If all you want to do is record the waypoint, then just submit those and someone else will worry about putting it in the build. Also, if you can't see those channels in the Discord, make sure that you've been given the mapper role, and those should be accessible to you. Happy mapping, and thank you for helping to make World of Warcraft accessible. We couldn't do it without you.